The 6-year-old girl stood in the doorway of the conference room, clutching a worn stuffed rabbit, completely unaware she was about to witness her father's public destruction. What happened next would shatter one man's world and accidentally create the rival who would bring a billion-dollar company to its knees. This is the story of Ryan Bennett, the single father who was fired for leaving work on time, and Victoria Hale, the CEO, who learns too late that the people you humiliate on your way up are the same ones you'll face on your way down. Stay with me until the end, hit that like button, and comment what city you're watching from so I can see how far this story travels. The conference room on the 18th floor of Caldwell Atelier smelled like expensive leather and desperation. Outside, Cleveland's February snow turned the city into a gray blur, but inside, the temperature felt 10 degrees colder than the weather warranted. Ryan Bennett stood at the far end of the mahogany table, a worn manila folder in his hands, trying not to think about the fact that his daughter's school pickup was in 45 minutes. Around him sat 7 executives in suits that cost more than his monthly rent, their faces arranged in expressions ranging from boredom to barely concealed hostility. At the head of the table, Victoria Hale radiated the kind of controlled fury that made grown men check their phones and pretend to be needed elsewhere. She was 30 years old and had been CEO of her father's furniture company for exactly 9 months. In that time, she'd replaced half the senior staff, quadrupled the marketing budget, and convinced herself that luxury branding was the only thing standing between Caldwell Atelier and complete irrelevance. Ryan had watched it all happen from the warehouse floor, saying nothing, fixing problems she didn't know existed. "You're wasting our time," Victoria said, not looking up from her phone. "We're not here to discuss shipping protocols." "With respect," Ryan said quietly, "the shipping protocols are why we're losing money." The room went silent, except for the sound of Kenneth Marsh, the CFO, clearing his throat. He was a soft man with hard eyes who'd learned early that agreeing with Victoria was easier than being right. "The warehouse manager thinks he understands luxury retail," Kenneth said, his voice dripping with amusement. "That's adorable." A few people smiled. Ryan didn't. He'd spent 3 days preparing this presentation. 3 nights after Lily fell asleep, sitting at their kitchen table, running numbers, checking data, trying to find a way to explain what was going wrong without making anyone feel blamed. It hadn't worked. "The Meridian Collection," Ryan said, opening his folder and pulling out a photograph. "Launched 6 weeks ago. Returns are running at 18%. Market adjustment," Victoria said immediately. "Luxury buyers have higher standards." "They're not returning them because of standards," Ryan said. "They're returning them because the furniture arrives broken." He spread 3 more photos across the table: a dining chair with a cracked leg, a dresser with a door hanging loose, a coffee table with a split down the middle of the supposedly solid walnut top. "These were all photographed in our warehouse," Ryan continued, "before shipping. The damage happens during production and we're sending it out anyway because nobody's checking." Victoria finally looked up. "We have quality control," she said coldly. "We had quality control," Ryan corrected. "Then we laid off half the inspection team to cut costs." The silence that followed was different, heavier. Kenneth Marsh shifted in his seat. 2 other executives suddenly found their notepads fascinating. Everyone in that room knew Ryan was right, and everyone knew that pointing it out made him dangerous. "The packaging is wrong too," Ryan continued, because he'd already committed and there was no point stopping now. "The foam inserts are too thin. The cardboard tears if the boxes get stacked more than 3 high, which they always do because the shipping companies don't care about our requests. And the wood we're using isn't properly dried, so it warps in transit, especially in humid climates." He pulled out another document, this one covered in his own handwriting. "I've calculated the cost of upgrading the packaging and extending the drying time for the wood. It adds $4 per unit. The average return costs us $68 in shipping, processing, and customer service. We're saving 4 to lose 68. "Thank you for the arithmetic lesson," Victoria said, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. "But you're missing the larger picture." "What picture is that?" "Brand perception." She stood up, and suddenly the room felt smaller. Caldwell Atelier isn't competing on price. We're competing on aspiration. Our customers don't want furniture that lasts 50 years. They want furniture that makes them feel like they've arrived. "They want furniture that doesn't show up broken," Ryan said. "They want exclusivity," Victoria snapped. "They want to walk into a room and know they own something other people can't afford. That's what luxury means. That's what luxury marketing means, Ryan said quietly. Luxury craftsmanship means building something worth the price. The room temperature dropped another 5 degrees. Kenneth Marsh actually winced. Victoria walked slowly around the table until she was standing directly across from Ryan, close enough that he could see the tiny muscle twitching in her jaw. "How long have you worked here?" she asked. 7 years? 7 years in the warehouse, she said. Moving boxes, managing inventory, and now you think you understand our customers better than the people who've spent their entire careers in luxury retail? I understand broken furniture, Ryan said. And I understand that people who spend $5,000 on a dining table expect it to arrive in one piece. You understand nothing. Victoria's voice was quiet now, which somehow made it worse. You clock in at 8. You clock out at 5. You've never stayed late for a client dinner, never worked a weekend, never put this company ahead of your personal life. And now you're standing here lecturing me about commitment? Ryan's hands tightened on the folder. I have a daughter, he said. Everyone has obligations, Victoria shot back, but some of us prioritize our careers. Some of us, Ryan said slowly, are single parents. The words hung in the air. For just a second, something flickered across Victoria's face. Not sympathy exactly, but a momentary recognition that she'd stepped close to a line she didn't usually cross. Then it was gone. That's not my problem, she said. Ryan nodded slowly. He'd expected that answer. Hell, he'd probably deserved it. But hearing it out loud still felt like a punch to the chest. He closed his folder. The solutions are all in here, he said, setting it on the table. Better packaging specs, adjusted production schedules, contact information for 3 different lumber suppliers who can provide properly dried wood at comparable prices. It's all costed out. All you have to do is read it. He turned to leave. We're not finished, Victoria said. Ryan stopped. Yes, he said without turning around. We are. He made it 3 steps toward the door before he heard it. Daddy? The voice was small and frightened and completely out of place in that glass and steel room. Ryan's heart stopped. Lily stood in the doorway, her purple backpack sliding off one shoulder, her stuffed rabbit, a gray, threadbare thing she'd named Mr. Hopscotch, clutched against her chest. Her eyes were red. Behind her, Jennifer from reception looked mortified. I'm so sorry, Jennifer stammered. She got past me. She said it was an emergency. It's okay, Ryan said, his voice suddenly gentle. Hey, sweetheart, what's wrong? Lily ran to him, and he caught her, lifting her up even though she was getting too big for it, even though every executive in that room was staring. I waited and waited, Lily said, her words tumbling out too fast. Miss Patterson said you'd be there at 3:30, but you didn't come, and I got scared. Oh, God. Ryan checked his watch. 4:15. He'd been so focused on the presentation he'd completely lost track of time. Baby, I'm so sorry. I forgot. You forgot me? Lily's voice cracked. No, never. I just got stuck in a meeting. I was coming to get you, I promise. He was aware of every eye in the room watching this moment. Aware of how it looked. The warehouse manager who couldn't even remember to pick up his own kid, lecturing them about responsibility. This is a closed meeting, Victoria said. Ryan turned to look at her, his daughter still in his arms. I know, he said. I'm leaving. This is inappropriate. I know that too. Do you? Victoria's eyes were cold. Because from where I'm standing, this looks like a man who can't separate his personal life from his professional responsibilities, who brings his family problems into the workplace, who expects everyone else to accommodate his schedule because he chose to be a parent. Ryan felt Lily stiffen against him. I didn't choose to be a single parent, he said quietly. My wife died. Another flicker across Victoria's face. Smaller this time. That's unfortunate, she said. But it doesn't change the fact that you're not meeting the standards this company requires. I meet every standard, Ryan said. I show up. I do my job. I solve problems you don't even know exist. You leave at 5 o'clock every day, Victoria said, without fail, to pick up my daughter from school. Other people have children, they make arrangements. Other people, Ryan said, his voice still level but something dangerous creeping into it now, have partners, or family, or enough money to pay for full-time childcare. I don't have any of those things. So yes, I leave at 5, And if that's a problem, then I guess we both know what happens next. The room was completely silent. Kenneth Marsh was staring at his hands. Jennifer, still standing in the doorway, looked like she wanted to disappear into the floor. Victoria walked back to her chair and sat down. "You're fired," she said simply. Ryan had expected it, but hearing it still felt unreal. "Effective immediately," Victoria continued. "Jennifer will escort you out. You'll receive 2 weeks severance and instructions for returning your access badge." "Okay," Ryan said. "Okay?" Victoria looked almost disappointed that he wasn't fighting back. "Okay," Ryan repeated. "Can I ask one thing?" "What?" "Read the folder," he said. "You don't have to credit me. You don't have to apologize. Just read it and fix the problems before the company bleeds out." "The company is fine," Victoria said. "The company is broken," Ryan said, "and you're too busy looking at magazine covers to notice." He shifted Lily in his arms and walked toward the door. "Mr. Bennett," Victoria called out. He stopped but didn't turn around. "You could have been something here," she said, "if you'd been willing to make sacrifices." Ryan looked at his daughter, then back at Victoria. "I did make sacrifices," he said, "just not the ones you wanted." Then he walked out, Lily's face buried in his shoulder, Mr. Hopscotch's gray ears bouncing with each step. Behind him, the conference room remained silent for a long time. Finally, Kenneth Marsh spoke. "Should I have HR draft the termination paperwork?" "Yes," Victoria said, still staring at the folder Ryan had left on the table. "And the folder?" "Throw it away," she said. "We don't need advice from warehouse workers." But she didn't throw it away herself. And later that night, long after everyone else had gone home, she'd pull it out of the trash and read every word. Not because she thought Ryan was right, but because something about the way he'd looked at his daughter made her wonder if she'd just made a terrible mistake. Ryan carried Lily through the parking garage, her backpack bouncing against his side, her breathing finally slowing down to something normal. She'd stopped crying somewhere around the elevators, but she hadn't let go of Mr. Hopscotch. "Am I in trouble?" she asked. "What? No, why would you be in trouble?" "I ran away from Miss Patterson." "You didn't run away. You came to find me." He unlocked his truck. A 10-year-old Ford with rust spots and a passenger door that's stuck in the winter. That's different. "But you got fired because of me." Ryan stopped with his hand on the door handle. "Lily, look at me." She lifted her head from his shoulder. "I didn't get fired because of you," he said. "I got fired because my boss and I disagreed about some things. That's all. It has nothing to do with you. You said you forgot to pick me up." "I did. And I'm sorry, but that's my fault, not yours." "Okay?" She nodded, but he could tell she didn't believe him. He strapped her into the booster seat and climbed into the driver's seat. The truck took 3 tries to start, the engine coughing before finally turning over. The heat didn't work great, but it worked enough. They drove in silence for a while. Cleveland in February was the color of old dishwater. Gray streets, gray sky, gray slush piled along the curbs. The buildings downtown gave way to residential neighborhoods, then to the east side where Ryan and Lily lived in a 2-bedroom apartment above a Vietnamese restaurant. "What does fired mean?" Lily asked. "It means I don't work there anymore." "Because you left at 5? Basically." "That's stupid." "Lily." "It is. Everyone leaves work. You have to pick me up from school. Where else would I go?" Ryan didn't have a good answer for that. They stopped at a red light. A homeless man stood on the corner holding a cardboard sign. Ryan rolled down the window and handed him $5, even though he probably shouldn't have, even though that $5 might matter in a week. "Are we going to be okay?" Lily asked. "Yes," Ryan said immediately. "We're going to be fine." "But you don't have a job." "I'll get another one." "Promise?" He looked at her in the rearview mirror. 6 years old, first grade. She'd lost her mother to cancer when she was 4, and sometimes Ryan could see the memory of it in her eyes, even though she claimed she didn't remember. "Promise," he said. They got home just as the sun was setting. The apartment was cold. Ryan always turned the heat down during the day to save money. He cranked it up now and started making dinner while Lily did her homework at the kitchen table. Spaghetti with jarred sauce, garlic bread from the frozen section, a salad that Lily would pick at but not really eat. "How was school?" Ryan asked. "Fine." "Just fine?" We learned about fractions. Oh yeah, what kind? The kind with numbers. Ryan smiled despite everything. All fractions have numbers, kiddo. Then, I don't know what kind. She went back to her worksheet, her pencil moving slowly across the page. Ryan watched her while the pasta water boiled. She had her mother's eyes, dark brown, almost black, and her mother's way of chewing on her lower lip when she concentrated. Sarah had been gone for 2 years, but sometimes Ryan would turn a corner in the apartment and expect to see her. Standing by the window, reading on the couch, humming while she made coffee. The grief came in waves. Some days he was fine, some days he could barely breathe. Dad? Yeah? Are you sad? A little, he admitted. About getting fired? About a lot of things. Lily looked up from her homework. Mom? Ryan nodded. I miss her too, Lily said. I know you do, sweetheart. They ate dinner mostly in silence. Afterward, Ryan helped Lily with her bath and got her into pajamas. They read 2 chapters of Charlotte's Web, which they'd been working through for the past week. Lily was convinced that Wilbur was going to die, even though Ryan kept promising her he wouldn't. But Charlotte's going to die, Lily said. You can't promise she won't. No, Ryan admitted. I can't promise that. That's sad. Yeah, but it's also beautiful. How is dying beautiful? Ryan thought about Sarah, about the last 6 months, the hospital rooms, the medication that stopped working, the way she'd held Lily one last time and whispered something he'd never been able to hear. Because, he said carefully, sometimes the most important thing isn't how long you live, it's what you do with the time you have. Lily considered this. That's still sad, she said. You're right, it is. He kissed her forehead and turned off the light. She fell asleep clutching Mr. Hopscotch, her breathing soft and even. Ryan stood in the doorway for a long time, just watching her. Then he went to the kitchen and opened his laptop. His savings account showed $8,347. Sarah's life insurance had left him with $75,000, but most of that was gone. Medical bills the insurance hadn't covered, the funeral, 6 months of barely working while he figured out how to be a single parent. He had enough for maybe 3 months of rent and basic expenses if he was careful. Then what? He opened a job search website and started scrolling. Warehouse manager positions, logistics coordinator, shipping supervisor, everything required either certifications he didn't have or availability he couldn't guarantee. His phone buzzed. A text from Marcus Chen, one of the guys from the warehouse. Heard what happened. That's fucked up, man. Let me know if you need anything. Then another from James Kowalski, the senior carpenter who'd been with Caldwell Atelier since Ryan's first day. She made a mistake. You were the only one who knew what he was doing. Ryan set the phone down and rubbed his eyes. The worst part wasn't losing the job. It was knowing he'd been right, knowing that everything he'd said in that conference room was true, and it hadn't mattered. Victoria Hale didn't want solutions. She wanted compliance. He pulled out the folder he'd made, his personal copy, identical to the one he'd left on the conference table. Packaging specifications, lumber supplier contacts, production timeline adjustments, all of it designed to save Caldwell Atelier from the slow collapse it didn't know it was heading toward. He'd spent 7 years at that company, 7 years learning every inch of the operation, how the wood arrived, how it was cut and dried and assembled, how the pieces were packaged and shipped, where the problems happened and how to fix them. And now all that knowledge was worthless. Or was it? Ryan opened a new tab and typed, "How to start a furniture company." The search results were overwhelming. Business licenses, liability insurance, supplier relationships, manufacturing space, capital investment, marketing, distribution. It was impossible. He was a warehouse manager with $8,000 and a 6-year-old daughter who needed him to pick her up from school every day at 3:30. He closed the laptop. But the idea didn't go away. Over the next week, Ryan did 3 job interviews. One was for a position that would have required him to work until 7 every night. One paid $12 an hour. The third seemed promising until the manager mentioned mandatory Saturday shifts. None of them would work. On Thursday, he took Lily to the park even though it was freezing. She played on the swings while he sat on a bench, trying not to think about the fact that his severance pay would run out in 9 days. "Dad, push me!" He got up and pushed her, watching her fly higher and higher, her laugh cutting through the cold air. Higher! Any higher and you'll go over the top. I want to go over the top. He gave her one more big push and she shrieked with delight. When they got home, there was a voicemail from Marcus Chen. Hey man, I've been thinking, you remember that warehouse on East 79th? The one that used to be a furniture factory back in the day? It's been empty for like 5 years, but I heard the owner's looking to lease it. Cheap. Real cheap. I don't know what you're planning, but might be worth a look. Ryan saved the message. That night, after Lily was asleep, he drove across town to East 79th Street. The building was exactly as bad as he expected. Broken windows, graffiti on the walls, a roof that looked like it leaked in at least 6 places. The parking lot was cracked concrete with weeds pushing through. But it was huge. 20,000 square feet easy, high ceilings, good bones under all the damage. Loading docks on both sides. Ryan walked around the perimeter, his breath fogging in the cold air. This was crazy. He didn't have the money. He didn't have the connections. He didn't have time. But he had something else. He had 7 years of watching Caldwell Atelier do everything wrong. 7 years of knowing exactly how furniture should be made and how it shouldn't. 7 years of fixing other people's mistakes. What if he didn't fix them anymore? What if he just did it right from the start? He took out his phone and called the number on the lease sign. A woman answered on the third ring. Midwest Commercial Properties. Hi, Ryan said. I'm calling about the warehouse on East 79th. The old factory? Yeah, it's available. Fair warning, it needs work. How much is the lease? $3,000 a month, first and last month up front, plus a security deposit. $9,000. Ryan had $8,347. Can I see it? He asked. When? Now. The woman laughed. It's 9 o'clock at night. I know, but I need to see it now. There was a pause. Give me 30 minutes, she said. Her name was Diane Russo, and she showed up in a Subaru wagon with a flashlight and a very skeptical expression. You know this place hasn't been occupied in 6 years, right? She said, unlocking the door. I know. The heating's shot. The electrical probably isn't up to code. And I'm pretty sure there's a family of raccoons living in the bathroom. That's fine. She looked at him like he was insane, but she opened the door. The inside was worse than the outside. Trash everywhere. Water damage on the floor. The smell of mold and old motor oil. But Ryan could see past all of it. He could see workbenches along the walls, sawdust on the floor, the sound of machinery, finished furniture waiting to be loaded onto trucks. What do you want it for? Diane asked. I'm going to build furniture, Ryan said. Here? Here. She swept her flashlight across the empty space. You got investors? No? Business plan? Not yet. Experience running a company? No? Diane laughed. Then you're either brave or stupid. Probably both, Ryan admitted. They stood there in the dark, the cold seeping through the walls. I can't give you a deal on the price, Diane said finally, but I can give you 60 days before the first payment is due. That enough time to figure out if you're serious? Yeah, Ryan said. That's enough. They shook hands in the darkness of that broken warehouse, and Ryan felt something shift inside him. He'd spent 2 years being careful, being safe, making sure Lily never had to worry about losing anyone else. But maybe careful wasn't the same as living. Maybe sometimes you had to risk everything to prove to your daughter that one cruel moment didn't get to define the rest of your life. He drove home with the lease agreement on the passenger seat, his hands shaking slightly on the steering wheel, already mentally cataloging everything he'd need to make this work. And in the morning, when Lily asked him what he was going to do now, he'd tell her the truth. He was going to build something that mattered. The first person Ryan called was James Kowalski. It was 6 in the morning, barely light outside, and Lily was still asleep. Ryan sat at the kitchen table with his second cup of coffee, the lease agreement spread out in front of him like a map to somewhere he wasn't sure existed. James answered on the first ring, his voice rough with sleep and what sounded like a lifetime of unfiltered cigarettes. This better be important. It is, Ryan said. I'm starting a company. There was a long pause. Then James laughed, a sound like gravel in a blender. You're serious? Completely. You got fired a week ago. You got a kid. You got no money, and you want to start a furniture company in Cleveland in February. That's the plan. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard, James said. When do we start? Ryan felt something loosen in his chest. You don't even know what I'm offering. Don't care. I've been building furniture for 42 years, 30 of those at Caldwell, watching that family turn a decent company into a branding exercise. If you're building something real, I'm in. I can't pay you what Caldwell pays. Caldwell pays me to stand around while 25-year-olds with business degrees tell me how wood works. You're offering me something better. What's that? A reason to get out of bed, James said. They met at the warehouse 3 hours later. James showed up in a pickup truck older than Lily, wearing the same canvas work jacket he'd worn every day for as long as Ryan had known him. He stood in the middle of that empty, broken space and looked around with an expression Ryan couldn't quite read. Place is a disaster, James said finally. I know. Roof's leaking, electrical's shot. Those loading docks are a lawsuit waiting to happen. I know that too. James walked over to one of the walls and ran his hand along the exposed brick. But the bones are good. Real manufacturing space. They built things here once. Could build things here again. That's what I'm hoping. What kind of things? Ryan pulled out a sketch he'd drawn the night before. Nothing fancy, just pencil on notebook paper. A simple dining table with clean lines and visible joinery. Commercial furniture, Ryan said. Hotels, offices, apartment complexes. Stuff that has to last because replacing it costs too much. James studied the sketch. This is good, simple, honest. That's the idea. Caldwell would call it boring. Caldwell isn't our customer, Ryan said. James handed the sketch back. You need more than me. This place doesn't run on good intentions. I know. I'm working on it. Over the next week, Ryan called everyone he knew from the warehouse. Marcus Chen came first, bringing his brother David, who'd been laid off from an automotive plant. Then came Luis Reyes and his cousin Fernando, both Finnish carpenters who'd been working residential jobs that paid under the table. Raymond Washington showed up without being asked, a 63-year-old upholsterer who'd heard through the grapevine and wanted in. They met on a Saturday morning, all of them standing in that freezing warehouse, their breath visible in the air. I can't pay market rate, Ryan said, because he believed in being honest even when it hurt. Not at first, maybe not for a while. I've got enough to cover the lease for 2 months and buy basic equipment. After that, we either make money or we're done. What's the split? Marcus asked. What do you mean? The money. When it comes in. How do we divide it? Ryan hadn't thought that far ahead. I don't know. Evenly? You're putting up the capital, James said. That should count for something. I'm putting up $8,000 in a dream, Ryan said. You're putting up your time and your skills, seems even to me. Raymond laughed. Man's trying to run a socialist furniture collective. I'm trying to run a company where people get paid fairly, Ryan corrected. In this economy? David Chen shook his head. Good luck with that. But they all stayed, and when Ryan asked who was serious about this, every hand went up. The first month was chaos. They spent 2 weeks just clearing out the warehouse, hauling trash, patching the roof with materials scrounged from a demolition site, replacing broken windows with plywood until they could afford real glass. James rewired the electrical panel himself, ignoring every safety code in existence. Luis and Fernando built workbenches from salvaged lumber. Ryan worked 16-hour days and still picked up Lily from school at 3:30. He'd bring her back to the warehouse and set her up in what used to be the foreman's office with her homework and a space heater. She'd sit there doing multiplication tables while power tools screamed in the background. Is this going to work? She asked one afternoon. Ryan was drilling pilot holes for a saw table, his hands covered in sawdust. Honestly, I don't know. That's not very encouraging. Would you rather I lie? Lily considered this. No, but maybe you could sound more confident when you tell the truth. He laughed despite his exhaustion. I'll work on that. Money ran out faster than he'd planned. The lumber was expensive even from the cheapest suppliers. Tools broke and had to be replaced. The heating system needed a part that cost $900 they didn't have. Ryan started selling things. His truck went first. He got $4,000 for it and bought a 15-year-old van with a dent in the side and an engine that sounded like it was considering retirement. Then his wedding ring, which hurt more than he'd expected. Sarah had never cared about jewelry, but selling it felt like losing her twice. He got $800. It paid for the heating part and 1 week of materials. We need customers, Marcus said one night. They were sitting in the warehouse after everyone else had gone home, surrounded by half-finished table frames and sawdust that got into everything. I know. No, I mean, we need them now. We've been building for 3 weeks and we haven't sold anything. I'm working on it. Working on it how? Ryan pulled out a folder. Inside were printed specifications for every piece they'd designed so far. Tables, chairs, desks, shelving units, all built to commercial standards with materials that would actually last. I'm going to businesses, Ryan said. Hotels, property management companies, anyone who needs furniture in bulk. And they all say the same thing. They already have suppliers. They're not interested in taking a chance on someone new. Marcus leaned back against a workbench. So we're screwed. Maybe? That's not very encouraging either. I'm working on my confidence, Ryan said. The breakthrough came from an unexpected place. Ryan had taken Lily to the public library on a Saturday morning. She was looking for books about horses, a new obsession that had replaced her previous obsession with dinosaurs. He was pretending to look at books, but actually staring at his phone, scrolling through business listings, trying to figure out who else to cold call. That's when he saw the flyer. Cleveland Property Managers Association. Annual meeting, March 15th. Vendors welcome. Ryan took a photo of it with hands that shook slightly. Dad, look at this one. Lily held up a book with a palomino on the cover. That's great, sweetheart. You're not even looking. He looked. Beautiful horse. You're distracted. I know. I'm sorry. He knelt down so they were eye level. I think I just found a way to get customers. From a library? Kind of. The property managers' meeting was held in a hotel conference room that made Caldwell Atelier's glass palace look modest. Crystal chandeliers. Carpet so thick it swallowed sound. 300 people in business casual networking over coffee and pastries that probably cost more than Ryan's weekly grocery budget. He'd worn his only suit, the one he'd bought for Sarah's funeral. It was slightly too big now. He'd lost weight he hadn't meant to lose. James had wanted to come with him, but Ryan had said no. This part needed to look professional, and James in his canvas jacket and work boots wasn't going to help. You're nervous, James had said that morning. Terrified. Good. Means you care. The vendor tables were set up along the back wall. Caldwell Atelier was there naturally. So was Hartwell Industries and Prestige Furnishings, and half a dozen other companies with marketing budgets bigger than Ryan's entire net worth. Ryan's table had a hand-painted sign that said Bennett Built, and 3 catalogs he'd printed at Kinko's for $40 each. Nobody stopped at his table for the first hour. He watched people circulate, shaking hands, exchanging business cards, making deals. Watched the Caldwell rep, a smooth guy named Derek in a suit that fit perfectly, chat up potential clients like they were old friends. Ryan stood behind his cheap table and felt invisible. Then a woman in her 50s stopped and picked up one of his catalogs. Bennett Built, she read aloud. Haven't heard of you. We're new, Ryan said, trying to sound confident instead of desperate. How new? 6 weeks. She raised an eyebrow. And you're already doing trade shows? Ambitious. Or stupid, Ryan admitted. That made her smile. I'm Margaret Voss. I manage 32 apartment buildings in Cleveland and Akron. Ryan's heart jumped. Ryan Bennett. I build furniture that doesn't fall apart. Bold claim. Honest claim. He pulled out one of the table frames they'd built. This is solid oak, mortise, and tenon joinery, finished with 3 coats of water-based polyurethane. It'll last 20 years with normal use, 30 if you're careful. Margaret examined the joints. You build this yourself? My team built it. I designed it. What's your price point? Ryan told her. He'd run the numbers 100 times, trying to find the balance between actually making money and undercutting the competition enough to get noticed. Margaret didn't flinch. That's 40% less than what I'm paying now. Our overhead's lower. Why should I trust you? It was a fair question. Ryan thought about lying, about inflating his credentials or making promises he wasn't sure he could keep. Instead, he told the truth. Because I got fired from Caldwell Atelier for telling them their furniture was breaking in transit. Because I've spent 7 years learning exactly how not to build things. And because if I screw this up, I don't get a second chance. Margaret looked at him for a long moment. I'm renovating a building in Lakewood, she said finally. 60 units. I need tables, chairs, and bed frames. Can you handle that? Ryan did the math in his head. 60 units meant at least 180 pieces. 4 weeks of work? Maybe 5. Materials would cost… Yes, he said. You didn't even hesitate. Because the answer's yes. I'll need samples first. 3 pieces. I'll test them for a month. If they hold up, we'll talk about the full order. When do you need them? 2 weeks. Ryan shook her hand before she could change her mind. You'll have them. He drove back to the warehouse doing 70 in a 55 zone, his hands tight on the steering wheel, already mentally rearranging the production schedule. James was drilling pocket holes when Ryan came through the door. We got a customer, Ryan said. James shut off the drill. Say that again. We got a customer, Margaret Voss, property manager. She wants samples in 2 weeks. Samples of what? Everything. Tables, chairs, bed frames. Marcus looked up from the sanding station. How many? 3 of each for now, but if she likes them, 60 units. The warehouse went quiet. 60 units, Raymond repeated. That's real money. That's rent for 6 months, David added. That's proof this isn't completely insane, James said. They worked through the night. Ryan called Lily's school and arranged for her to stay with her friend Emma's family for a few days. Emma's mom, Patricia, was a saint who'd been helping out since Sarah died. She didn't ask questions, just said yes. You're working on something, Patricia said when Ryan picked Lily up 3 days later. Trying to? She said you're building a company. Trying to do that too. Patricia handed him a container of lasagna. You look like you haven't eaten in a week. I've been busy. Eat anyway, she said. Lily needs you alive. The samples came together slower than Ryan wanted and faster than he'd feared. James built the bed frames with joints so tight you couldn't slip paper between them. Luis and Fernando tackled the chairs, their finish work so clean it looked machine-made. Ryan handled the tables himself, working until his hands cramped and his eyes blurred. On day 13, they loaded everything into the van. What if she hates them? Marcus asked. Then we start over, Ryan said. What if she loves them? Then we figure out how to build 60 more. Margaret's office was in a converted warehouse in Ohio City, the kind of place that had been gentrified just enough to charge downtown rent. She met him in the parking lot, wearing jeans and a fleece jacket that had seen better days. You're early, she said. Didn't want to risk traffic. They unloaded the pieces together. Margaret ran her hands over every joint, tested every connection, sat in each chair, and bounced slightly like she was trying to break it. This is good work, she said finally. Thank you. No, I mean, this is really good work. Better than what I'm getting from my current supplier. Ryan allowed himself to breathe. So you want the full order? I want 2 full orders, Margaret said. The Lakewood building and another property in Cleveland Heights. 120 units total. The number hit Ryan like a physical force. That's a lot, I know. Can you handle it? He thought about the warehouse, the equipment they had, the team working for promises and hope, the daughter who needed him to be more than a failure. Yes, he said. Margaret smiled. You still didn't hesitate. Because the answer's still yes. They shook hands again, and this time she gave him a purchase order with numbers that made his eyes water. Ryan drove back to the warehouse going exactly the speed limit because he couldn't afford a ticket and because he needed time to think. 120 units, 8 weeks of work if everything went perfectly. More if anything went wrong. He'd have to hire more people, buy more materials, maybe even rent equipment they couldn't afford to own. But they could do it. He pulled into the warehouse lot and sat in the van for a minute, just breathing. Then he went inside and told the team. James actually smiled, which Ryan had seen maybe twice in 7 years. We're really doing this, Marcus said. We're really doing this, Ryan confirmed. Raymond opened a cooler and pulled out beers he'd apparently brought for exactly this occasion. They stood in a circle in the middle of the warehouse, surrounded by sawdust and half-finished projects and the smell of wood and sweat and possibility. To Bennett built, Raymond said, raising his bottle. To not starving, David added. To proving that idiot CEO wrong, Marcus said. They drank, and for the first time since getting fired, Ryan felt something that might have been hope. That night, he picks up Lily from Patricia's house. She ran to him and hugged his legs, Mr. Hopscotch dangling from one hand. "Did it work?" she asked. "What?" "Your samples. Did the lady like them?" "She loved them," Ryan said. "We got the job." "So we're not going to be homeless?" "We were never going to be homeless. Emma's mom said you were taking a big risk." Ryan made a mental note to have a conversation with Patricia about what she discussed in front of 6-year-olds. It was a risk, he admitted. But it paid off. They got ice cream on the way home, even though it was freezing outside and Ryan probably shouldn't have spent the money. Lily got chocolate chip, Ryan got coffee. They sat in the van with the heat running, eating too fast and getting brain freeze. "Dad? Yeah? I'm proud of you." The words caught him completely off guard. He looked at his daughter, this tiny human who'd lost her mother and watched her father lose his job and never once complained. "I'm proud of you too," he said. "I didn't do anything." "You did everything," Ryan said. "You're the reason I'm doing any of this." Lily thought about that while she ate her ice cream. "Can I see the warehouse sometime?" she asked. "You've been there like 50 times. I mean, see it when it's really working, when you're building things." "Sure," Ryan said. "I'd like that." The next 8 weeks were brutal. They hired 4 more people, 2 Finnish carpenters and 2 general laborers. Ryan maxed out 2 credit cards buying lumber and hardware. The team worked 6 days a week, sometimes 7. Ryan kept picking up Lily at 3:30, but some nights he'd bring her back to the warehouse after dinner and she'd sleep on a cot in the office while he worked until midnight. Problems came up constantly. A shipment of oak arrived with water damage. The table saw blade broke and took 3 days to replace. Fernando sliced his hand open and needed 12 stitches, putting him out of commission for a week. But slowly, piece by piece, the furniture took shape. Ryan started sleeping 4 hours a night. He lost more weight. His hands were covered in cuts and his back hurt constantly from lifting and carrying. But they hit the deadline. Margaret's truck showed up on a Tuesday morning and loaded everything they'd built. Ryan watched his team's work disappear into the cargo hold and felt something between pride and terror. "What if something breaks during delivery?" Marcus asked. "Then we fix it," Ryan said. "What if the customer hates it?" "Then we build something better." But Margaret didn't hate it. 3 days later, she called with another order. Then another property manager called. Then a small hotel chain in Columbus. Word spread in the way it does when you do good work and don't screw people over. By May, Bennett Built had 12 employees and a waiting list. By June, they'd paid back Ryan's credit cards and actually turned a profit. Small, but real. Ryan hired an accountant, a woman named Joyce, who worked out of her house and charged a third of what the big firms wanted. She looked at his books and shook her head. "You're undercharging," she said. "I'm charging what people will pay." "You're charging less than your work is worth. That's not sustainable." "It's getting us clients." "It's also guaranteeing you'll never make real money." Ryan thought about that. "How much should I be charging?" Joyce showed him the numbers. They were 30% higher than his current rates. "Nobody will pay that," Ryan said. "The right people will," Joyce said. "The question is whether you believe your work is worth it." He raised prices the next week. Lost 2 potential clients because of it. But the ones who stayed didn't blink. Summer came. The warehouse got brutally hot despite the fans. Ryan bought an old air conditioning unit from a restaurant supply auction. It worked about 60% of the time. Lily turned 7. Ryan threw her a birthday party in the warehouse, inviting her whole class. The kids played hide and seek in the lumber racks while the adults stood around drinking lemonade and pretending this was a normal party venue. Patricia cornered him by the cake table. "You look better," she said. "Than what?" "Than you did in February. You were barely holding on." "I'm still barely holding on," Ryan said. "But now you're holding on to something that's moving forward," Patricia said. "That's different." She was right. Ryan had spent 2 years in survival mode, working, picking up Lily, sleeping, repeating, trying not to think about Sarah or the future or anything beyond the next 24 hours. But now he was building something, not just furniture, something bigger. In August, Bennett Built got its first major contract. North Star Hospitality, a hotel chain with properties across the Midwest, was renovating 15 locations and needed furniture for all of them. The proposal meeting was in Chicago. Ryan borrowed a suit from James that actually fit. He printed presentations on paper that didn't feel cheap. He practiced his pitch until Lily made him stop because she was sick of hearing it. The night before the meeting, he couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about Victoria Hale, about that conference room, about the way she'd looked at Lily like she was an inconvenience instead of a human being, about the folder full of solutions he'd left on the table. He wondered if she'd ever read it. Probably not. The Chicago meeting was held in a hotel conference room that made the property manager's meeting look shabby. North Star's purchasing team consisted of 4 people in their 30s who looked like they'd been born in business casual. Ryan was one of 6 companies presenting. Caldwell Atelier went first. Derek, the same smooth rep from the property manager's meeting, showed slides full of buzzwords and lifestyle photography. He talked about brand experience and luxury positioning and aspirational design. The North Star team looked bored. 3 other companies presented, all competent, all professional, all forgettable. Then it was Ryan's turn. He didn't have slides. Instead, he'd brought actual furniture, a nightstand, a desk chair, a coffee table. "I'm not going to talk about brand positioning," Ryan said. "I'm going to show you why our furniture is better." He pulled out a screwdriver and started disassembling the nightstand right there in the conference room. "See this?" He held up a drawer slide. "This is a full extension ball-bearing slide, rated for 75 pounds. Your guests can pack it full and it'll still glide smoothly. Most hotel furniture uses cheaper slides that jam after 6 months." He reassembled the drawer in about 90 seconds. The finish is 3 coats of commercial-grade polyurethane, alcohol-resistant, heat-resistant. You can set a wet glass on it and it won't leave a ring. Here, try it. He poured water from a pitcher directly onto the table surface. The North Star team actually leaned forward. The joinery is mortise and tenon with reinforcement blocks. No staples, no particle board. If something breaks, and eventually something will because hotel guests are hard on furniture, you can replace individual components instead of throwing out the whole piece. He spent 20 minutes demonstrating durability, repairability, and cost-effectiveness. No buzzwords, no aspirational nonsense, just honest explanations of why his furniture would save them money over 5 years. When he finished, the room was quiet. Then the lead buyer, a woman named Susan Chen, started clapping. "That," she said, "was the first presentation today that actually answered the question I care about." "Which question is that?" Ryan asked. "Will this furniture still work in 3 years, or will I have to replace it?" "It'll work in 3 years," Ryan said. And in 10, the North Star team asked follow-up questions for another 30 minutes about production capacity, delivery timelines, customization options. Ryan answered everything honestly, including the things that made him look small. "We're not the biggest company," he admitted. "We've only been operating for 6 months, but that means every piece we build matters. We can't afford to cut corners because we don't have a brand name to hide behind." Susan made notes on her tablet. "We'll be in touch." Ryan flew home that night convinced he'd lost. He'd been too honest, too small, too inexperienced. But 3 days later, Susan called. "We're awarding you the contract," she said. Ryan was in the warehouse. He had to sit down. "All 15 properties?" he asked. "All 15. 470 units. Delivery starting in October." The number was so large it didn't feel real. "Mr. Bennett, are you still there?" "Yes, sorry. Yes, we can do that." "I should mention," Susan continued, "Caldwell Atelier bid significantly lower than you did." Ryan's stomach dropped. "Then why?" "Because their rep couldn't tell me how their furniture was built. He talked about aesthetics and brand value. You talked about drawer slides and finish durability. I'm not buying art. I'm buying furniture that has to survive 1,000 guests. You understood that." After she hung up, Ryan sat in the silence of the warehouse for a long time. Then he called the team together and told them. James laughed that gravel laugh. "We just beat Caldwell Atelier." "We didn't beat them," Ryan said. "We just did better work." "That's the same thing," Marcus said. Maybe it was. That night, Ryan took Lily to dinner at a real restaurant instead of the Vietnamese place downstairs. She ordered chicken fingers and chocolate milk and looked around at all the adults in their business clothes. "This is fancy," she said. "Special occasion." "What's the occasion?" "We won a really big contract today." Lily dipped a chicken finger in ketchup. "Is that good?" "It's really good." "Does that mean you're not sad anymore?" The question caught him off guard. I'm still sad sometimes about Mom. But not about getting fired? Ryan thought about Victoria Hale, about that conference room, about the moment his whole life had seemed to fall apart. No, he said honestly. Not about that anymore. The North Star contract changed everything, but not in the ways Ryan expected. The money was real, which helped. But the pressure was worse. 470 units meant scaling up production in ways the warehouse wasn't designed for. It meant hiring people faster than Ryan could properly train them. It meant mistakes that cost real money instead of theoretical futures. The first major problem hit in late September. Ryan had ordered lumber from a new supplier, someone Marcus had found who could deliver the volume they needed at a price they could almost afford. The first shipment arrived on a Thursday morning. 20 pallets of oak, enough to keep them running for 2 weeks. James took one look at it and shook his head. This is wet. What do you mean wet? Ryan asked. I mean, it's not dried properly. Look. James pressed his thumbnail into one of the boards. It left an impression. This'll warp the second we cut it. Maybe before. Ryan checked 3 more boards. James was right. The whole shipment was unusable. Can we dry it ourselves? Marcus asked. Not fast enough, James said. And even if we could, there's no guarantee it won't crack. Ryan did the math in his head. Returning the shipment and ordering from their original supplier would put them 2 weeks behind schedule. Missing the North Star deadline would probably cost them the entire contract. What if we just used it? David suggested. Maybe it'll be fine. It won't be fine, James said flatly. It'll warp. The joints won't hold. Everything we build will fall apart in 6 months. Ryan thought about Victoria Hale, about cheap wood and broken furniture and shortcuts that seemed smart until they destroyed everything. Send it back, he said. But the deadline, Marcus started. Send it back, Ryan repeated. We'll figure something else out. They worked through the weekend using their remaining inventory while Ryan called every lumber supplier within 200 miles. Most couldn't deliver the volume fast enough. The ones who could wanted prices that would eat their entire profit margin. Finally, on Sunday night, he found a yard in Pennsylvania willing to rush a shipment for only a moderate upcharge. The wood would arrive Tuesday. They'd lost 3 days but avoided disaster. That was close, Marcus said. Too close, Ryan agreed. But close wasn't the same as failure, and Ryan was learning that success wasn't about avoiding problems. It was about fixing them before they became catastrophes. October came cold and gray. The warehouse heating barely worked. Everyone wore jackets while they built furniture, their breath fogging in the air. Lily started 2nd grade. She'd made a best friend named Sophie who lived 3 blocks away. Some afternoons, Sophie's dad would pick both girls up from school, and Ryan would collect Lily around 6, after the worst of the work rush was done. You're working too much, Patricia told him one evening when he came to pick Lily up from her house. She'd been watching Lily more and more lately, and Ryan knew he was taking advantage of her kindness. I know, he said, but it's temporary. Once we deliver the North Star order, things will calm down. Will they? Patricia asked. Or will there just be another order, another deadline, another reason to work yourself to death? Ryan didn't have a good answer for that. The truth was, he didn't know how to do this any other way. Before Sarah died, they'd split everything. She'd worked part-time as a graphic designer from home, picking up Lily from preschool, handling doctor's appointments and grocery shopping, and the 1,000 small tasks that kept a family running. Ryan had worked full-time at Caldwell, but his hours were predictable. Normal. Now everything fell on him, and there weren't enough hours in the day. I'm doing the best I can, he said finally. I know you are, Patricia said, softer now. But Lily needs you present, not just providing. The words stayed with him during the drive home. Lily was quiet in the back seat, working on a drawing she wouldn't let him see yet. What are you making? He asked. A surprise. Can I have a hint? No, then it wouldn't be a surprise. When they got home, she presented it to him. A crayon drawing of the warehouse with stick figures inside. One tall figure labeled Dad, and one small figure labeled Me. Above the warehouse, she'd drawn a sun with a smiley face. This is us? Ryan asked. This is us working together, Lily said. Like a team. Ryan hung it on the refrigerator next to her school papers and felt something crack in his chest. The first North Star delivery was scheduled for October 15th. 200 units destined for hotels in Michigan and Indiana. The trucks arrived at 6 in the morning, and Ryan's team spent 4 hours loading everything they'd built. James walked the length of each truck, checking straps and padding, making sure nothing could shift during transit. "This is good work," he said when they finished. "Think they'll be happy?" Ryan asked. "If they're not, they're idiots." 2 days later, Susan Chen called. "The Michigan properties received their furniture," she said. Ryan's stomach tightened. And it's perfect. Better than the samples you sent. The hotel managers are thrilled." Ryan let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. "That's good to hear." "More than good. We're moving up the timeline for the other properties. Can you deliver the rest by November 15th instead of December?" That was 4 weeks early. Ryan looked around the warehouse. His team was already working 6 days a week. They were tired. He was tired. "Yes," he said. "We can do that." After he hung up, Marcus appeared at his elbow. "We can do what?" "Deliver everything 4 weeks early." "Are you insane?" "Probably," Ryan admitted. They hired 6 more people. The warehouse was cramped now, workstations jammed together, sawdust everywhere despite constant sweeping. The noise was constant, saws screaming, drills whining, the pneumatic hiss of nail guns. Ryan started sleeping at the warehouse 3 nights a week. He'd set up a cot in the office next to the space heater. Some mornings he'd wake up and forget where he was. Lily spent more time with Patricia and Sophie's family. Ryan hated it, hated feeling like he was failing her the same way he'd failed Sarah by working too much in those last months. But this was different, he told himself. This was building something. Creating a future where Lily wouldn't have to worry about money or stability or whether her father could keep the lights on. In early November, something unexpected happened. Ryan was at the warehouse on a Saturday morning when a black Mercedes pulled into the parking lot. The driver's side door opened and Victoria Hale stepped out. She looked exactly the same as she had 9 months ago. Expensive coat, perfect hair, the kind of confidence that came from never having to wonder if you could afford next month's rent. Ryan met her at the door. "Mr. Bennett," she said. "Ms. Hale." They stood there for a moment, neither quite sure what to do with the other's presence. "I heard you won the North Star contract," Victoria said finally. "Word travels." "It does in this industry." She glanced past him into the warehouse. "Can I come in?" Ryan wanted to say no, wanted to tell her she'd forfeited the right to see what he'd built when she fired him for trying to help. But curiosity won. "Sure," he said. The warehouse was busy despite it being Saturday. Luis and Fernando were running the table saw. Marcus was fitting drawer slides. Raymond was at the finishing station, spraying polyurethane with the kind of precision that came from 40 years of practice. Victoria walked slowly through the space, her heels clicking on the concrete floor. She stopped at one of the completed nightstands, running her hand over the surface. "This is excellent work," she said. "Thank you." Mortise and tenon joinery, ball-bearing slides, commercial-grade finish. She looked at him. "This is everything you tried to tell us to do." "I remember. We didn't listen." "I remember that too." Victoria moved to a stack of chairs waiting for final assembly. "How many people do you have working here?" 22. "Revenue? Why do you want to know?" "Professional curiosity." Ryan almost laughed. "We're on track to do about 2 million this year." Something flickered across Victoria's face. "Surprise, maybe? Or something else?" "That's impressive for 9 months," she said. We work hard." "I can see that." She turned to face him fully. "Caldwell is struggling." "I'm sorry to hear that." "Are you?" Ryan thought about it honestly. "Actually, no, not really." "Fair enough." Victoria walked back toward the door and Ryan thought she was leaving, but she stopped and turned around. "I read your folder," she said. "What?" "The one you left on the conference table. I read it." "When?" "That night, after I fired you. I pulled it out of the trash and read every word." Ryan didn't know what to say. "You were right," Victoria continued. "About the packaging, the lumber, the quality control. Everything you said would happen, happened. Our return rate hit 23%. We lost the Hartwell account. 3 property managers switched to competitors." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I owe you an apology." The words hung in the air between them. "You don't owe me anything," Ryan said. "I do. I was wrong. Not just about the business decisions, but about you, about what you were trying to do. Ryan leaned against a workbench. You thought I was trying to undermine you. I thought you were trying to make me look bad in front of the board. I was trying to save the company. I know that now. Victoria looked around the warehouse again. You built something real here. Something honest. It's what Caldwell used to be before my father died, and I turned it into a branding exercise. Why are you really here? Ryan asked. Victoria met his eyes. I want to buy your company. The offer was so unexpected that Ryan actually laughed. You're serious? Completely. Bennett Built has something Caldwell needs. Integrity, craftsmanship, a reputation for delivering what you promise. I'm willing to pay fair market value plus 20%. It's not for sale. Everything's for sale at the right price. Not this, Ryan said. I didn't build this to sell it. I built it because you fired me for telling the truth. So this is revenge? No. This is proof that doing things right matters more than doing them fast. Victoria was quiet for a moment. I can offer you a partnership instead. Caldwell has the infrastructure and market presence. You have the craftsmanship and customer loyalty. Together we could dominate the commercial furniture market in the Midwest. It was a good offer, maybe even a smart one. Ryan could expand faster with Caldwell's resources, reach bigger clients, make more money. But he'd also be back under Victoria's authority, and he remembered exactly how that felt. No thanks, he said. Can I ask why? Because 9 months ago you fired me in front of my daughter for leaving work on time. Because you told me I wasn't committed enough to sacrifice my personal life. Because you built a company on appearances instead of substance, and when someone tried to fix it, you threw them away. Victoria took the words without flinching. You're right. I did all those things. So why would I work with you now? Because people change, Victoria said. Because I'm trying to fix what I broke. And because holding on to anger hurts you more than it hurts me. Ryan thought about Sarah. About the way she'd faced her diagnosis with something that looked like acceptance but was actually just exhaustion from fighting. About how she'd told him in the hospital that forgiveness wasn't about the other person deserving it. It was about not carrying the weight anymore. I'm not angry, he said, but I'm also not interested. Victoria nodded slowly. Fair enough. She walked to the door, then paused. For what it's worth, your daughter should be proud of you. She barely sees me. But when she does, she sees someone who doesn't quit. That matters. After Victoria left, James appeared from the finishing station. Heard most of that, he said. And you made the right call. Partnership with Caldwell would have killed what makes this place work. You think? I know, Caldwell's dying because it forgot how to build things people actually need. You remembered. That's not something you can split down the middle. The rest of November blurred together. The warehouse ran 7 days a week. Ryan hired 4 more people and rented additional equipment. They built furniture in assembly line fashion, which felt wrong but was the only way to meet the deadline. The quality stayed high, though. James made sure of that. Any piece that didn't meet his standards got torn apart and rebuilt, even if it meant working through the night. We're not Caldwell, he'd say whenever someone suggested cutting a corner. We're better than that. The second North Star delivery happened on November 12th. 3 days ahead of schedule. 8 trucks loaded with 270 units of furniture headed for hotels in Ohio, Illinois, and Wisconsin. Susan Chen called the next day. Everything arrived in perfect condition, she said. We're already getting compliments from the hotel managers about the quality. That's good to hear, Ryan said. More than good. We're expanding into the Southeast next year. 30 properties. I'd like Bennett Built to bid on the furniture contract. Ryan did the math. 30 properties meant roughly 800 units, maybe more. Send me the specifications, he said. We'll put together a proposal. After he hung up, he sat in the office and stared at the wall. 8 months ago, he'd been sleeping on this cot, wondering if the business would last another month. Now he was fielding contracts that would keep them busy for years. It didn't feel real. That night, he picked up Lily from Patricia's house at a normal hour for the first time in weeks. They got Chinese takeout and ate it on the floor of their apartment because Ryan still hadn't replaced the dining table he'd sold to buy lumber. Patricia says you've been working too much, Lily said, stabbing at her lo mein with chopsticks she didn't quite know how to use. Patricia worries, Ryan said. I worry too. He looked at his daughter, 7 years old, second grade. She'd lost her mother and watched her father lose his job and never once complained about eating dinner on the floor. "I'm sorry," he said. "For what?" "For not being around more." Lily shrugged. "You're building something important." "You're important too." "I know. But the warehouse is cool. Everyone there is nice, and you seem happier when you talk about it." "Happier than what?" "Than before, when you worked at the old place." Ryan thought about Caldwell Atelier, about those 7 years of fixing other people's mistakes, of watching good ideas get ignored, of leaving at 5 o'clock with guilt eating at him because everyone else stayed late. "Yeah," he said, "I am happier." "Then it's okay that you work a lot," Lily said, "as long as you still pick me up sometimes." "I'll always pick you up," Ryan promised. In early December, something strange started happening. Competitors began calling. First, it was small operations like Bennett Built, asking if Ryan wanted to partner on larger contracts. Then it was mid-sized companies looking to learn his production methods. Then, weirdly, it was Hartwell Industries, one of the big players in commercial furniture, asking if he'd be interested in selling. Ryan said no to all of them. "Why?" Marcus asked after Ryan turned down the third offer in a week. "Some of these numbers are insane." "Because it's not about the money," Ryan said. "It's always about the money." "Not this time," Ryan gestured at the warehouse. "This is about building something that works the way it's supposed to. The second we sell or partner with someone who doesn't care about that, it falls apart." "You sound like James." "James is usually right." What Ryan didn't tell Marcus was that every offer felt like a test, like the universe was asking him if he'd learned anything from watching Caldwell Atelier choose appearance over substance. The answer was yes. He'd learned exactly what not to do. Christmas approached. Ryan gave everyone in the warehouse a bonus. Not huge, but real. A week's pay for every person who'd been there since the beginning. Half a week for everyone else. "You sure about this?" Joyce the accountant asked when she saw the numbers. "This is most of your profit margin." "I'm sure," Ryan said. "These people took a chance on me when I had nothing. They deserve to share in the success." The warehouse Christmas party was held on a Saturday afternoon. Someone brought a space heater that actually worked. Patricia made cookies. Lily and Sophie ran around playing tag between the workbenches while adults drank beer and told stories about near disasters that were funny now but hadn't been at the time. James cornered Ryan near the finishing station. "You did good, kid," he said. "We did good," Ryan corrected. "No, this was your vision. We just helped build it. It wouldn't exist without you." James shrugged. "Maybe. But it wouldn't exist without you getting fired either. Funny how that works." "Yeah," Ryan said. "Funny." He thought about Victoria Hale again, about that conference room, about the moment everything fell apart. She'd meant to destroy him. Instead, she'd freed him to become something better. On Christmas Eve, Ryan and Lily decorated a small tree in their apartment. They still didn't have much furniture, but they had enough. A couch from a thrift store. A coffee table Ryan had built himself. The kitchen table they ate dinner at every night. "Dad?" Lily asked while hanging ornaments. "Yeah? Are we rich now?" The question caught him off guard. "Why do you ask?" "Emma's mom said your company is doing really well." "We're doing okay," Ryan said carefully. "We're not rich, but we're stable." "What's the difference?" "Rich means you have more money than you know what to do with. Stable means you don't have to worry about paying rent." Lily thought about this. "I like stable better." "Me too." They finished the tree and sat on the couch, drinking hot chocolate and watching the lights blink. Outside, Cleveland was covered in snow, the city quiet in that way it only got on Christmas Eve. "I miss Mom," Lily said quietly. "I do too," Ryan said. "Do you think she'd be proud of you?" Ryan thought about Sarah, about the way she'd encouraged him to speak up at Caldwell when he saw problems, about how she'd told him to never compromise on what he knew was right, even when it was easier to stay quiet. "Yeah," he said. "I think she would." "She'd be proud of both of us," Lily said. "Why both of us?" "Because you built something good, and I didn't complain when you had to work all the time." Ryan pulled her close. "You're the best thing I ever built." "I'm not a thing. I'm a person." "You're right. Sorry." She laughed, and they sat there in the quiet, the Christmas tree lights reflecting off the window, the sound of the city muffled by snow. The year ended quietly. Bennett Built closed for a week between Christmas and New Year's. Ryan spent the time with Lily, taking her ice skating and to a movie, and just being present in a way he hadn't managed to be for months. On New Year's Eve, his phone rang. Unknown number. "This is Ryan." "Mr. Bennett, this is Thomas Caldwell." Ryan sat up straighter. Thomas Caldwell was Victoria's father, the man who'd built Caldwell Atelier into a regional powerhouse before dying and leaving it to his daughter. Except he apparently wasn't dead. "I thought you were retired," Thomas said. "Not dead. Common mistake. My daughter likes to pretend I don't exist." "Why are you calling?" "Because I heard you beat Caldwell on the North Star contract, and I heard you turned down Victoria's offer to buy your company." "Both true." "Good. Don't sell. What you've built is exactly what I tried to teach my daughter before she decided branding was more important than craftsmanship." "With respect, sir, why does that matter to you?" Thomas laughed, a sound that reminded Ryan of James. "Because I spent 40 years building furniture that mattered. Then I handed the company to someone who turned it into a lifestyle brand. It kills me watching what it's become." "So what do you want from me?" "Nothing. I just wanted to tell you that you're doing it right. Keep building things that last. Keep treating your people fairly. And don't let anyone convince you that success means compromising what made you successful in the first place." The line went dead. Ryan stared at his phone for a long moment, then set it down. Outside, fireworks started going off. Amateur displays from people's backyards, bright colors against the dark sky. Lily came running from her room. "It's midnight!" "Almost," Ryan said, checking his watch. 2 more minutes." They counted down together, standing at the window, watching the city celebrate. When midnight hit, Lily turned to him. "What are you going to do this year?" she asked. Ryan thought about the North Star contract, about the Southeast expansion, about all the opportunities and pressures that were coming. "I'm going to keep building," he said, "and I'm going to be home for dinner more." "Promise?" "Promise." The fireworks continued, bright and loud and temporary. But inside the apartment, everything felt solid, real. Ryan had spent 9 months proving that doing things right mattered more than doing them fast. That integrity couldn't be faked or branded or sold. He'd built something that would last. And somewhere across town, in a glass office on the 18th floor, Victoria Hale was probably working late, trying to figure out how to save a company that was dying from the inside. Ryan didn't feel sorry for her exactly, but he didn't hate her either. She'd given him the greatest gift possible, even if she hadn't meant to. She'd fired him. And in doing so, she'd set him free. January brought problems Ryan hadn't anticipated. The Southeast expansion proposal from North Star required a formal bid by the end of the month. 800 units across 30 properties meant tripling current production capacity, which meant a bigger warehouse, more equipment, and at least 20 additional employees. Joyce laid out the numbers on a Tuesday morning while sleet hammered against the office windows. "You'll need to borrow money," she said. "At least $300,000, maybe more." Ryan stared at the spreadsheet. "I don't want debt." "Then you can't take the contract." "There has to be another way." "There isn't. You can't scale this fast without capital. You either borrow, take on investors, or turn down the biggest opportunity you'll probably ever get." Ryan rubbed his eyes. He'd been up since 4, couldn't sleep, kept running scenarios in his head that all ended the same way. Growth required risk. Risk required money he didn't have. "What kind of interest are we looking at?" he asked. Joyce showed him 3 different loan options. The best rate was still high enough to make his stomach hurt. "And if the contract falls through? Then you're stuck with a loan you can't repay and a warehouse you can't fill." "Great. Business is risk," Joyce said, not unkindly. "You've been lucky so far, but luck runs out. At some point you have to decide if you're building something sustainable or just riding momentum." The words stung because they were true. That afternoon, Ryan called a meeting with his core team. James, Marcus, Raymond, Luis, and Fernando gathered in the cramped office that barely fit 6 people. "North Star wants a bid for their Southeast expansion," Ryan said. 800 units over 6 months. Marcus whistled. "That's huge. It's also impossible without major changes. We'd need a bigger space, more equipment, probably double our workforce. So we do it, Raymond said. That's the whole point of growing, isn't it? It means taking on debt, Ryan said. 300,000 minimum. If anything goes wrong, we could lose everything. The room went quiet. James leaned back in his chair, which creaked ominously. What's the alternative? We stay small, keep taking contracts we know we can handle, build slow and steady. And watch someone else take the North Star contract, Marcus said. Probably. Which someone? Luis asked. Caldwell? Maybe, or Hartwell, or any of the other companies trying to break into this market. Fernando crossed his arms. So if we don't grow, we die slow. And if we do grow, we might die fast. That's about the size of it, Ryan admitted. James stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the parking lot where snow was piling up against the fence. You remember what you told me when you started this place? I said a lot of things. You said you were building something that mattered, something your daughter could be proud of. James turned around. This matters. Taking the safe route keeps food on the table, but it doesn't prove anything. You already proved you could survive. Now prove you can actually win. Ryan looked at the faces around him. People who'd taken a chance on a fired warehouse manager with no business experience and $8,000 in savings. All in favor of submitting the bid? He asked. Every hand went up. All in favor of me being terrified about it? Every hand stayed up. Ryan laughed despite himself. Okay, we're doing this. The loan application process was humiliating. Ryan had to provide 3 years of tax returns, which meant showing a bank officer that he'd made $38,000 in his last year at Caldwell. The officer, a woman in her 50s named Barbara, looked at the numbers with barely concealed skepticism. And now you're asking for $300,000 to expand a 9-month-old company. Yes? Based on projected revenue from a contract you haven't won yet. The contract's likely, Ryan said. North Star's already indicated they want us to bid. Likely isn't guaranteed. Barbara tapped her pen against the desk. What collateral can you offer? The equipment? The inventory? The lease on the warehouse? Equipment depreciates. Inventory's only worth something if you can sell it, and you don't own the warehouse. So what are you saying? I'm saying this is a high-risk loan for a business with minimal operating history. She closed the folder. I can't approve this. Ryan felt something cold settle in his chest. What if I put up personal collateral? Like what? You rent your apartment. Your vehicle's worth maybe $5,000. You don't own property. I have my daughter's education fund. Barbara looked at him with something that might have been pity. Mr. Bennett, I can't in good conscience approve a loan secured against your child's future. Even if it means building a better future? Even then. Ryan tried 2 more banks, got the same answer both times. Nobody wanted to bet on a furniture company started by a single father with no formal business training. He was sitting in the warehouse office, staring at rejection letters, when his phone rang. Unknown number. This is Ryan. Mr. Bennett, my name is Catherine Wu. I'm a private investor specializing in small manufacturing businesses. How did you get this number? Thomas Caldwell gave it to me. He suggested I might be interested in what you're building. Ryan sat up straighter. I'm not selling. I'm not buying. I'm offering capital. What's the catch? Catherine laughed. Direct. I appreciate that. The catch is I want equity. 15% for $300,000 in funding. Ryan did the math. 15% of Bennett Built, which currently existed as a sole proprietorship with revenue but no formal valuation. How do you even calculate what 15% is worth? He asked. Based on your current revenue and projected growth, I'm valuing the company at $2 million. 15% of that is $300,000, which is exactly what you need. And what do you get? A stake in a company I believe will be worth 10 times that in 5 years, plus a seat on your board, assuming you form one, and quarterly reports on company performance. I've never had investors before. I know. That's part of why I'm interested. You haven't been corrupted by venture capital expectations or pressure to prioritize growth over quality. Ryan thought about Victoria Hale, about investor meetings and branding strategies and all the things that had turned Caldwell Atelier into something unrecognizable. I need to think about it, he said. Of course, but the North Star bid is due in 3 weeks. If you're serious about competing, you don't have much time. After she hung up, Ryan sat in the silence of the office. Outside, he could hear the warehouse sounds. The saw. The drill press. Marcus laughing at something Luis said. This was his, built from nothing. And now someone wanted to own a piece of it. He called James into the office and explained the offer. 15% isn't bad, James said. Some investors want 40, 50%. But it's still giving up control. Is it? You'd still own 85%, still make all the decisions. Until I don't. James sat down heavily. You're scared. Of course I'm scared. What if she pushes us to cut corners? What if she wants us to prioritize profit over quality? Then you tell her no. You're still the majority owner. What if she pulls her funding? Then you're exactly where you are now, looking for money you don't have. James leaned forward. Look, I get it. You built this thing from scratch. It's yours. But at some point, you have to decide if you want to stay small and pure or grow and deal with the complications that come with it. Those aren't the only options. They are in this economy. Small companies get crushed by big ones. You either scale up or get absorbed. Ryan knew he was right, but knowing it didn't make the decision easier. That night, he talked to Lily about it. She was doing homework at the kitchen table, working on a math sheet with the kind of intense concentration that made her look exactly like Sarah. Hey kiddo, can I ask you something? Is it about math? Because I'm really bad at word problems. It's about the warehouse. Lily set down her pencil. Okay, someone wants to give me money to make the company bigger, but if I take it, they'll own part of the company. How much? 15%. Lily thought about this with the seriousness of someone who'd just learned about percentages. That means you still own 85%. Right. So you're still the boss. Technically. Do you trust this person? It was such a simple question. Did he trust Catherine Wu, a woman he'd never met, who'd gotten his number from Thomas Caldwell, a man who'd called him once on New Year's Eve? I don't know her well enough to trust her, Ryan admitted. Then maybe you should meet her first, Lily said, like it was obvious. Catherine Wu agreed to meet at a coffee shop in Cleveland Heights. She was younger than Ryan expected, maybe 40, with streaks of gray in her black hair that she hadn't bothered to dye. She ordered black coffee and got straight to business. Thomas Caldwell speaks highly of you, she said. I've met him exactly once, on the phone. He's a good judge of character, and he feels guilty about what his daughter did to you. He shouldn't. That's between me and Victoria. Is it? Catherine pulled out a tablet and showed him a spreadsheet. Caldwell Atelier's stock price has dropped 40% since you left. Their return rate is at 26%. They've lost 3 major contracts in the last quarter. Why are you telling me this? Because Victoria Hale is trying to save the company by copying your model. Better materials, stricter quality control, transparent pricing, everything you tried to convince her to do a year ago. Good for her. Except it's not working. You know why? Ryan shook his head. Because she doesn't believe in it. She's doing it because the numbers say she has to, not because she understands why it matters. And customers can tell the difference. Catherine swiped to another screen. You, on the other hand, built Bennett Built on principles you actually believe in. Your customers know they're getting something real that's worth more than any marketing campaign. So why do you want to invest? Because I think you'll be worth $50 million in 5 years, and I want 15% of that. The number was so absurd that Ryan almost laughed. We're a furniture company in Cleveland. You're a furniture company that's beating established competitors on quality and reputation. In an industry full of cheap garbage, you're offering something people actually want. That's rare. It's also a lot of pressure. Welcome to success. Catherine closed her tablet. Here's my offer. $300,000 for 15% equity. No board seat, no operational control, no pressure to compromise your standards. I want quarterly reports and an annual meeting. That's it. Why so hands-off? Because I've seen what happens when investors micromanage. They kill the thing that made the company valuable in the first place. I'm betting on you, not on my ability to run your business better than you do. Ryan studied her face, looking for the catch. There had to be a catch. What happens if we fail? He asked. Then I lose my investment and you lose your company. But I don't think that's going to happen. Why not? Because you care too much to let it fail. They shook hands in that coffee shop, and Ryan signed papers he didn't fully understand but that Joyce assured him were standard. $300,000 appeared in Bennett Bilt's bank account 2 days later. Ryan stared at the balance for a long time, feeling like he was looking at someone else's numbers. The North Star bid took 2 weeks to prepare. Ryan worked with Joyce to cost out every piece, every hour of labor, every possible complication. The final proposal came in at $1.2 million for 800 units delivered over 6 months. That's low, Marcus said when he saw the number. It's competitive, Ryan corrected. Hartwell's going to undercut us. Hartwell's going to promise the moon and deliver garbage. We're promising what we can actually do. The proposal went out on January 29th, 1 day before the deadline. Ryan hand-delivered it to North Star's corporate office in Columbus, driving through a snowstorm that turned the 2-hour trip into 4. Susan Chen met him in the lobby, looking amused. "You know you could have emailed this," she said. "I wanted you to see I was serious. Driving through a blizzard seems excessive. So is asking you to trust us with 800 units." Susan took the proposal. "We'll review all bids and make a decision by mid-February. Can I ask how many companies are competing?" 7, including Caldwell Atelier. Ryan felt something twist in his stomach. "Victoria's bidding?" "She called me personally, said Caldwell's made significant operational changes and wanted another chance." "What did you tell her?" "That I'd consider their proposal like everyone else's." Susan looked at him carefully. "This bothers you." "It doesn't bother me, it's just ironic." "How so?" "She spent months ignoring everything I tried to tell her. Now she's trying to fix it because the numbers forced her to." "People change," Susan said. "Do they? Or do they just adapt when they have no choice?" It was the same question Victoria had asked him. The same question Ryan had been asking himself since she showed up at his warehouse. February dragged. Ryan threw himself into preparing for the North Star contract, even though they hadn't won it yet. He leased a second warehouse space 3 blocks from the original, bought equipment at auction, started interviewing potential hires. "What if we don't get it?" Marcus asked. "Then we have space and equipment for whoever else comes along," Ryan said. But the truth was scarier. If they didn't get North Star, Catherine Wu's investment would burn through an equipment and overhead without revenue to sustain it. They'd have maybe 6 months before the whole thing collapsed. Ryan didn't sleep well in February. Lily noticed. She started leaving notes in his lunch bag. Simple things written in second-grade handwriting. "You're doing great, Dad. Don't worry so much. I love you." He kept everyone. On February 14th, Valentine's Day, Susan Chen called. Ryan was at the new warehouse, supervising equipment installation. He almost didn't hear the phone over the noise. "Mr. Bennett, this is Susan Chen from North Star." Ryan's heart stopped. "Hi. We've reviewed all proposals for the Southeast expansion." "And?" There was a pause that lasted forever. "We're awarding the contract to Bennett Bilt." Ryan sat down on a stack of lumber. "Say that again?" "You won. 800 units, delivery starting in April. Congratulations." "Can I ask what made you choose us?" "Your proposal was detailed, realistic, and honest. You didn't promise impossible timelines or miracle solutions. You just showed us exactly what you'd deliver and why it would work." Susan paused. "Also, Caldwell's proposal was almost identical to yours. Same materials, same techniques, same quality standards. It felt like they were copying homework. Maybe they learned something. Maybe. But I'd rather work with the original than the copy." After Susan hung up, Ryan sat in the silence of that empty warehouse. Around him, workers were installing a new table saw. Outside, February rain was turning to sleet. He'd won. Bennett Bilt had just secured the biggest contract in company history. Ryan called James first. "We got it," he said. There was a pause. Then James laughed that gravel laugh. "Of course we did. We're the best. We're going to have to work insane hours. When don't we?" Ryan called the rest of the team. By evening, everyone knew. Someone bought champagne even though nobody really liked champagne. They drank it anyway in the original warehouse, standing among the sawdust and half-finished projects. "To North Star," Raymond said, raising his plastic cup. "To not failing," Marcus added. "To proving we're not insane for doing this," Louise said. They drank and celebrated, and Ryan felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Not just pride, not just relief. Something bigger. Like he'd finally proven to himself that Sarah's death and getting fired and all the terrible things that had happened weren't the end of his story. They were just the beginning. That night, Ryan took Lily to dinner at the same restaurant they'd gone to after the first big contract. She ordered chicken fingers again and chocolate milk. "We won the big job," Ryan told her. "The one you were worried about? That's the one." "So now you can stop worrying?" Ryan laughed. "Now I get to worry about actually doing the work." "But you'll do it. You always do." Her confidence was absolute, the kind of faith only children have. It made Ryan want to be the person she believed he was. "Yeah," he said, "we'll do it." The next morning, Victoria Hale called. Ryan was in the original warehouse, going over production schedules with James. He saw her name on the screen and almost didn't answer. "This is Ryan. I heard you got the North Star contract." Her voice was controlled, professional. Word travels fast. "It does when you lose to the person you fired a year ago." Ryan didn't know what to say to that. "I'm not calling to congratulate you," Victoria continued. "I'm calling because I need help." "With what?" "Caldwell's dying. Our stock's in freefall. We've lost 6 major contracts in 3 months. The board's talking about selling to Hartwell Industries." "I'm sorry to hear that." "Are you?" Ryan thought about it honestly. "Actually, yeah, I am. Your father built something good. It shouldn't die because of bad management." The words hung in the air, harsh but true. "You're right," Victoria said finally. "It shouldn't, which is why I'm asking if you'd consider a merger." "I already said no to that." "This is different. Not a buyout. A real merger. Bennett Built and Caldwell Atelier become one company. Equal partnership. You handle operations and quality. I handle sales and business development." "Why would I do that?" "Because Caldwell has infrastructure you don't. Distribution networks. Established clients. Name recognition. Combined with your craftsmanship and reputation, we could dominate the entire Midwest market." It was a good pitch. Better than the first one. "I'll think about it," Ryan said. "That's all I ask." After she hung up, James looked at him. "You're not seriously considering that." "Why not?" "Because she fired you. Because she's only asking now that she's desperate. Because the second things stabilize, she'll go right back to cutting corners and chasing trends." "You don't know that." "I know people don't change that fast." Ryan thought about Sarah again. About forgiveness. About carrying weight. "Maybe I should at least hear her out," he said. "That's a mistake." "Probably, but I'm going to do it anyway." They met at a neutral location, a conference room in a hotel neither of them had history with. Victoria brought her CFO, Kenneth Marsh, who looked significantly less confident than he had in the Caldwell conference room a year ago. Ryan brought Joyce, who'd insisted on coming. "Let's be clear about terms," Joyce said immediately. "This would be a merger, not an acquisition. Bennett Built and Caldwell Atelier would form a new entity with equal ownership." "Agreed," Victoria said. "Revenue split?" "Based on what each company contributes. Currently, Caldwell does about $8 million annually. Bennett Built is on track for $3 million. "So you want 70-30? Joyce asked. "That's proportional to revenue." "It's also proportional to failure rates. Caldwell's return rate is 26%. Ours is 4%. That means most of your revenue is coming back as losses." Kenneth shifted uncomfortably. "We're addressing the quality issues." "By copying Bennett Built's model," Joyce said, "which suggests you don't actually know how to fix your own problems." The room temperature dropped. Victoria leaned forward. "You're right. We don't know how to fix it. That's why we need you. Ryan understands manufacturing in ways I never did. He knows how to build things that last. Together, we could save Caldwell and grow Bennett Built faster than either company could alone." "At what cost?" Ryan asked. "What do you mean?" "I mean, what happens when your board pressures us to cut costs? When investors want faster growth? When someone suggests we could make more money using cheaper materials?" "That won't happen." "It already happened. That's how we got here." Victoria was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was different, smaller. "You're right. I prioritized growth over quality. I thought branding mattered more than craftsmanship. And I destroyed what my father built." She looked directly at Ryan. "But I'm trying to fix it, and I can't do it without help." It was the most honest thing Ryan had heard her say. "I need to think about it," he said. They left the hotel with nothing decided. Joyce was quiet during the drive back. "You're going to say yes, aren't you?" she finally asked. "I don't know." "Yes, you do. You want to save Caldwell because some part of you still cares about what it used to be." Ryan didn't argue because she was right. That night, he talked to Lily about it again. "The lady who fired you wants to work together?" Lily asked. "Basically." "That's weird. Very weird. Do you want to?" Ryan thought about Thomas Caldwell, about 40 years of building furniture that mattered, about a legacy being destroyed by someone who'd forgotten why it existed in the first place. "Part of me does," he admitted. "What about the other part?" "The other part thinks it's a trap." Lily considered this with her usual seriousness. "Maybe you should ask her why she really wants this." "I did. She said she needs help." "No, I mean, really why? Like, what does she get out of it besides help?" Ryan looked at his 7-year-old daughter and wondered when she'd gotten so perceptive. "That's a good question," he said. He called Victoria the next morning. "I'll consider the merger on one condition," he said. "What's that?" "Tell me the truth. Why do you really want this?" There was a long pause. "Because I'm tired of failing," Victoria said finally. "Because every decision I make seems to make things worse. Because I look at what you built and I see what Caldwell used to be, and I want that back." "That's not enough." "What do you mean?" "I mean you can't want it back. You have to understand why it mattered in the first place." "I do understand." "No," Ryan said. "You understand that quality furniture sells better. That's different from understanding why quality matters." "Then explain it to me." Ryan thought about Sarah, about the hospital bed they'd bought when she couldn't climb stairs anymore, about how it had broken twice because it was cheaply made, and how terrifying it had been when she'd fallen. "Quality matters," he said slowly, "because people trust their lives to the things we build. They sleep in beds we make. They feed their families at tables we design. When we cut corners, we're not just losing money. We're breaking that trust." Victoria was quiet for a long time. "I never thought about it that way," she said. "I know. That's the problem. If I learn," she said, "if I actually learn to think that way, would you consider the merger?" Ryan looked around his apartment, at Lily's drawings on the refrigerator, at the secondhand furniture that was good enough but not great, at the life he'd built from nothing after everything fell apart. "Maybe," he said, "but you'd have to prove it first." Victoria showed up at the Bennett-built warehouse on a Tuesday morning in March without calling ahead. Ryan was in the middle of reviewing production schedules with Marcus when Jennifer from the front office, they'd finally hired someone to handle phones and paperwork, knocked on the door. "Someone here to see you," she said. "Who?" "Victoria Hale." Marcus raised his eyebrows. "Want me to stay?" "No," Ryan said. "I'll handle it." Victoria was standing in the middle of the warehouse floor, looking out of place in her expensive coat and heels. She was watching Luis and Fernando work on a set of dining chairs, her expression hard to read. "Miss Hale," Ryan said. She turned. "You said I had to prove I could think differently, so I'm here to learn." "Learn what?" "How you do this. How you build furniture that actually lasts." Ryan studied her face, looking for the angle. There had to be an angle. "This isn't a tour," he said. "I know. I want to work here, for free, however long it takes." "Work here doing what?" "Whatever you need. I'll sand, I'll sweep, I'll answer phones. I don't care. I just want to understand what I've been missing." James appeared from the finishing station, wiping his hands on a rag. "You're serious?" "Completely." "Lady, you run a company worth millions. Why would you sweep floors?" "Because that company is dying," Victoria said. "And I don't know how to save it." Ryan and James exchanged a look. "1 week," Ryan said finally. "You work here for 1 week. Do whatever we tell you to do. At the end, we'll talk about whether a merger makes sense." 1 week, Victoria agreed. She started the next morning at 7. Wearing jeans and a plain t-shirt, Ryan had never seen her in anything that wasn't business formal. James put her to work sanding table frames, the most tedious job in the warehouse. "See this?" James held up a piece of oak. "You're sanding with the grain, not against it. Light pressure. You're smoothing, not stripping." Victoria took the sandpaper and started working. Within 10 minutes, her hands were cramping. Within 30, she had blisters forming on her palms. She didn't complain. At lunch, she sat with the crew in the break area, eating a sandwich she'd brought from home. Nobody talked to her much. They all remembered the stories Ryan had told about getting fired. On day 2, James moved her to the assembly station with Marcus. "This is a pocket hole jig," Marcus explained. "You drill here, here, and here. Angle has to be exact or the joint won't hold." Victoria drilled 17 holes before she got one right. "It's harder than it looks," she said. "Everything worth doing is," Marcus replied. Ryan watched her from across the warehouse. She was terrible at the actual work, which wasn't surprising. But she was trying, which was. On day 3, Raymond took her to the finishing station. "This is where most companies screw up," he said. "They rush the finish because it's the last step and they want to ship. But the finish is what protects everything else. You rush here, you waste all the work that came before." He showed her how to apply polyurethane in thin, even coats, how to sand between layers, how to inspect for imperfections. Victoria worked slower than everyone else, but she worked carefully. That evening, after most of the crew had gone home, Ryan found her in the finishing area, staring at a nightstand she'd been working on all afternoon. "Something wrong?" he asked. "I messed up the second coat, see?" She pointed to a spot where the finish had pooled slightly. "I have to sand it down and start over." "That's part of learning. I've wasted 3 hours. You've learned something valuable. That's not waste." Victoria looked at him. "How do you stay patient with this? Every piece takes so long. Every step has to be perfect." "Because the alternative is building garbage. But you could build twice as much if you cut some corners. Small ones. Things customers wouldn't even notice." "I'd notice," Ryan said. "And eventually the customers would too. Maybe not immediately. But when that nightstand's drawer starts sticking in 2 years, or the finish starts peeling in 5, they'll remember where they bought it. So it's about reputation." "It's about trust," Ryan corrected. "These people are giving us their money. The least we can do is give them something that works." Victoria was quiet for a moment. "I never thought about customers that way. To me, they were just revenue numbers, conversion rates, and lifetime value calculations." "They're people," Ryan said. "People who work hard for their money and trust us to give them something worth what they paid. That's what my father used to say." He was right. Victoria went back to sanding the nightstand. Ryan started to leave, then stopped. "Why are you really doing this?" he asked. "I told you, I want to learn." "You could hire consultants, read books, watch videos. You don't need to sand tables in a warehouse." Victoria set down her sandpaper. "You want the honest answer?" "Always. Because I'm tired of being the villain in my own story. I'm tired of making decisions that hurt people and calling it business. I'm tired of looking at my father's company and seeing what I've turned it into." She looked around the warehouse. "You built something here that actually means something, and I want to know how that feels." The honesty in her voice surprised him. "It feels like work," Ryan said. "Constant, exhausting, never-ending work." "But you're proud of it." "Yeah, I am. That's what I want," Victoria said. "Not the company, not the money, just the feeling that what I'm doing matters." On day 4, Lily came to the warehouse after school. Patricia had a doctor's appointment and Sophie's family was out of town, so Ryan had no choice but to bring her with him. She set up in the office with her homework while Ryan worked on production schedules. Around 5, she wandered out to the warehouse floor. Victoria was helping Luis load finished pieces onto a shipping pallet. She looked exhausted, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, sawdust on her clothes. Lily walked right up to her. "You're the lady who fired my dad." The warehouse went silent. Everyone within earshot stopped working. Victoria crouched down to Lily's level. "I am, and I'm very sorry about that." "He cried," Lily said. "I wasn't supposed to know, but I heard him in the bathroom that night." Ryan felt his chest tighten. He thought he'd been quiet. "I'm sure he did," Victoria said softly. "I'd cry too if someone treated me the way I treated him." "So why did you do it?" "Because I was scared and angry, and I blamed him for problems that weren't his fault." "That's mean." "It was very mean." Lily studied her face. "Are you going to be nicer now?" "I'm trying to be." "Good. Because my dad deserves nice people." Victoria's eyes were bright when she stood up. Ryan walked over and took Lily's hand. "Come on, kiddo. Let's get dinner." "Can Victoria come?" Lily asked. Ryan looked at Victoria, surprised. "I don't want to intrude," Victoria said. You should come, Lily insisted. We're just getting pizza, and you look hungry. They went to the pizza place 2 blocks from the warehouse. The three of them sat in a booth with torn vinyl seats and a table that wobbled. Lily ordered pepperoni. Ryan got a vegetarian slice. Victoria just got water at first, then Ryan told her to actually eat something. When's the last time you had a meal? He asked. Yesterday, maybe. You're working 10-hour days on water? I've been busy. You're going to pass out. Victoria ordered a slice of cheese pizza and picked at it while Lily talked about school. About her friend Sophie and the book they were reading in class, and how she was learning cursive even though nobody used it anymore. My mom used to write in cursive, Lily said, but really pretty cursive. Dad kept some of her letters. That's nice, Victoria said quietly. Do you have kids? Lily asked. No. Do you want them? Lily, Ryan warned. It's okay, Victoria said. I don't know. I never thought about it much. I was always focused on work. That's what my dad used to do. Then Mom died and he had to focus on me instead. I bet that was hard. It was really hard, Lily said with the bluntness of a 7-year-old. But we're okay now. After dinner, Ryan drove Victoria back to where she'd parked her car at the warehouse. Lily had fallen asleep in the back seat, clutching Mr. Hopscotch. Your daughter's remarkable, Victoria said. Yeah, she is. She's also right. I was mean to you, worse than mean. You were scared, Ryan said. People do stupid things when they're scared. That's generous. It's true. Victoria opened the car door, then paused. Can I ask you something? Sure. Why are you even considering the merger? You don't need Caldwell. You're doing fine on your own. Ryan thought about his answer carefully. Because your father built something that mattered, and I don't want to see it die just because the wrong person was in charge for a while. The wrong person, Victoria repeated. That's me. That was you, Ryan corrected. I don't know who you are now. Neither do I, Victoria admitted, but I'm trying to figure it out. On day 5, the last day of Victoria's week, everything went wrong at once. A shipment of drawer slides arrived defective. The new table saw broke down. One of the newer employees cut himself badly enough to need stitches. And James discovered that 15 dining tables they'd built for the North Star contract had a wood grain mismatch that nobody had caught. We can't ship these, James said, showing Ryan the problem. The grain on one table leg ran perpendicular to the others, structurally fine but visually wrong. How did this get past inspection? Ryan asked. Tommy was rushing. He missed it. All 15 tables? All 15. Ryan did the math. Rebuilding meant a 3-day delay on the North Star shipment. They'd still make the deadline, but barely. Rebuild them, he said. That's $5,000 of wasted material, Marcus pointed out. I know. We could just ship them. Customers probably won't notice. We'll notice, Ryan said. Rebuild them. Victoria, who'd been watching the whole conversation, helped them disassemble the tables. It was mindless work, removing screws, separating pieces, sorting wood. You're eating the cost? She asked Ryan. We're eating the cost. Why? Marcus is right. Most customers wouldn't catch that. But some would, and those are the customers who tell other people about us. So it's marketing. It's integrity, Ryan corrected. There's a difference. They worked until midnight rebuilding tables from correctly matched wood. Victoria stayed the entire time, even though her week was technically over. Her hands were covered in blisters now, and she moved like everything hurt. Around 11, Ryan found her sitting on a stack of lumber, drinking water from a bottle that was mostly empty. You can go home, he said. I want to finish. Why? Because I've never finished anything that mattered. I start things. I delegate things. I sign off on things other people built. But I've never actually seen something through from beginning to end. It's just tables, Ryan said. No, Victoria said. It's people trusting that what you promise them is what they'll get. That's not just tables, that's everything. The last table was finished at 12:30 in the morning. They loaded all 15 onto pallets and wrapped them in protective plastic. In 6 hours, the delivery truck would pick them up. Everyone who'd stayed late gathered in the break area. Someone had bought donuts. They ate stale donuts and drank bad coffee and looked like they'd been through a war. That sucked, Marcus said. Completely, Luis agreed. But we did it right, James added. Yeah, Ryan said. We did. Victoria stood up, brushing donut crumbs off her jeans. I need to say something. The room quieted. A year ago, I fired Ryan for trying to save my company. I convinced myself he was the problem when the real problem was me. I prioritized growth over quality, appearances over substance, and I almost destroyed everything my father built. She paused, looking around at faces that were still mostly skeptical. This week I learned what I should have learned years ago. That furniture isn't about branding or market positioning. It's about keeping promises to people who trust you. And I want to thank you all for letting me see what that actually looks like. Nobody said anything for a moment. Then Raymond started clapping. Slowly at first, then the others joined in. Does this mean you're not a terrible person anymore? Marcus asked. Victoria laughed. I'm probably still pretty terrible, but I'm trying to be less terrible. Good enough, Raymond said. The next day, Ryan and Victoria met at the same coffee shop where he'd met Catherine Wu. This time, they were alone. Your week's up, Ryan said. It is. So what did you learn? Victoria wrapped her hands around her coffee cup. I learned that I don't actually know how to build anything. I learned that quality takes time, and there's no shortcut around that. I learned that your team works hard because they believe in what they're making, not because someone's threatening them. What else? I learned that I've been running Caldwell exactly backward, chasing customers instead of earning them, cutting costs instead of investing in value, treating employees like expenses instead of assets. So what are you going to do about it? I don't know, Victoria admitted. Fixing Caldwell means changing everything, the suppliers, the processes, the culture, and I'm not sure I have the skill to do that. You could hire someone who does, or I could merge with someone who already knows how. Ryan had been expecting this. The merger. Equal partnership, 50-50 ownership. You run operations and manufacturing. I run sales and business development. We combine Bennett Bilt's reputation with Caldwell's infrastructure. And when we disagree, we figure it out, like partners. That's vague. It is, Victoria agreed. But I don't have a better answer. I can't promise we won't fight. I can't promise it'll be easy. All I can promise is that I finally understand what we're actually building. Ryan thought about it, about the warehouse, about his team, about the promises he'd made when this whole thing started. I need to talk to my people first, he said. That night, Ryan called a meeting at the warehouse. Everyone from the core team showed up. James, Marcus, Raymond, Luis, Fernando, even Catherine Wu, who'd heard about the merger possibility and wanted to weigh in. Ryan laid out Victoria's offer. 50-50 merger, equal control, combined resources. Absolutely not, James said immediately. Why not? Catherine asked. Because we built this place to get away from Caldwell's nonsense. Merging with them is like jumping back into the fire. It's also an opportunity to scale faster than we could alone, Catherine said. Caldwell has distribution networks and established clients. That's worth something. It's worth nothing if they drag down our quality, Marcus said. What if they don't? Ryan asked. What if Victoria actually learned something this week? People don't change that fast, James said. Sometimes they do, Raymond countered. I watched her work this week. She's got blisters on her hands and she kept coming back. That counts for something. The debate went on for an hour. Half the team thought it was a mistake. Half thought it was an opportunity. Nobody knew for sure. Finally, James looked at Ryan. What do you want to do? He asked. Honestly, I don't know. Part of me wants to stay independent, build slow and steady, keep control of everything. And the other part? The other part thinks about Thomas Caldwell, about 40 years of work being destroyed, about whether I have a responsibility to try to save it. You don't owe Thomas Caldwell anything, Marcus said. Maybe not, but I owe it to myself to try. The room went quiet. If we do this, James said slowly, we do it with conditions. Bennett Bilt standards don't change. Our quality control doesn't change. Anyone who can't meet those standards gets let go, regardless of how long they've been at Caldwell. Agreed, Ryan said. And if Victoria tries to pull the same nonsense she pulled before, the merger ends. Clean break. No questions. Also agreed. James looked around at the others. All in favor? The vote was close. 8-4, 6 against. But it was enough. The merger took 3 months to finalize. Lawyers, contracts, due diligence. Ryan and Victoria met weekly to hammer out details. How to combine the companies, which facilities to keep, who would report to whom. It was exhausting and frustrating, and neither of them was good at compromise. But they figured it out. The new company was called Caldwell Bennett Furniture. Half the board seats went to former Caldwell investors, half to Bennett built stakeholders. Ryan and Victoria were co-CEOs, which everyone agreed was probably a disaster waiting to happen. The first board meeting was in June. Ryan sat at the head of the table, the same table where Victoria had fired him 14 months earlier. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Let's start with Q2 numbers, Victoria said. The CFO, still Kenneth Marsh, pulled up a presentation. Combined revenue was $12 million. Return rate had dropped to 8%. Customer satisfaction scores were up across the board. That's better than projections, one of the board members said. It's also just the beginning, Ryan said. We've only merged production on 30% of Caldwell's product line. The rest is still using the old suppliers and processes. How long until full integration? Another board member asked. 6 months, maybe 8. That's too slow. That's as fast as we can go without sacrificing quality, Ryan said. The board member looked like he wanted to argue, but Victoria cut him off. Quality is non-negotiable. We're not repeating past mistakes. The meeting went on for 2 hours. Some board members got it, some didn't. Ryan could tell there would be fights ahead, but for now, they'd bought time to do it right. After the meeting, Victoria caught up with Ryan in the parking lot. That went okay, she said. Thompson's going to be a problem. Thompson's always a problem. We'll manage him. They stood there in the summer heat, both exhausted. You know what's weird? Victoria said. What? A year ago, you were just the warehouse manager I barely noticed. Now you're my business partner. A year ago, you were the CEO who fired me. Now you're someone I almost trust. Victoria smiled. Almost? Trust is earned, Ryan said. You're earning it, but we're not there yet. Fair enough. That weekend, Ryan took Lily to the new combined headquarters. It was the Caldwell building, but with changes. Bennett built employee photos on the walls, quality standards posted in the production area, a break room that didn't feel like a corporate afterthought. This is where you work now? Lily asked. Sometimes. I still spend most of my time at the warehouse. Do you like it here? Ryan looked around. It's complicated, but yeah, I think I do. Because you're fixing what was broken? Something like that. They walked through the production floor. Ryan introduced Lily to workers from both companies, now mixed together. Some she'd met before. Some were new. Is this the famous Lily? One of the Caldwell carpenters asked. That's me, Lily said. Your dad talks about you all the time. He does? Constantly. You're like his favorite topic. Lily looked up at Ryan, grinning. By August, the integration was mostly complete. Caldwell's entire product line had been moved to Bennett Built's quality standards. Some of the old Caldwell workers adapted. Some didn't and left. The ones who stayed learned to care about things they'd been told didn't matter. Revenue continued climbing. More importantly, the return rate dropped to 5%. Customer reviews went from mixed to overwhelmingly positive. Ryan still picked up Lily from school most days, still had dinner with her every night, still read to her before bed, but he'd also hired enough people that the company didn't collapse when he wasn't there. That was new and strange and surprisingly freeing. In September, North Star called with another contract. 25 properties, over 1,000 units. Can we handle that? Victoria asked during the executive meeting. Not without expanding again, Ryan said. So we expand. It means another warehouse, more equipment, 50 new employees. Can you maintain quality at that scale? It was the right question. A year ago, Victoria wouldn't have asked it. Yeah, Ryan said. If we're careful. They took the contract. One evening in October, Ryan was working late in his office when Victoria knocked on the door. Got a minute? She asked. Sure. She sat down holding a folder. I wanted to show you something. Inside was a letter from Thomas Caldwell, Victoria's father, written in shaky handwriting that suggested either old age or illness. Ryan read it slowly. Thomas was proud of Victoria, proud that she'd admitted her mistakes, proud that she'd learned to value the work over the image. He said Ryan reminded him of himself at that age. and he was glad the company was in both their hands. When did he send this? Ryan asked. Last week. He's not doing well. The cancer's back. I'm sorry. Me too. Victoria took the letter back. I called him after you agreed to the merger, told him what I'd learned. He cried. I'd never heard him cry before. That must have been hard. It was, but also good. We actually talked for the first time in years. Really talked. Ryan didn't know what to say to that. He wants to meet you, Victoria said, before it's too late. They drove to Thomas Caldwell's house the following Sunday. It was a modest place in Shaker Heights, nice but not ostentatious. Thomas answered the door himself, a thin man in his 70s who moved like everything hurt. You must be Ryan, he said. Yes, sir. Stop calling me sir. I'm Thomas. They sat in his living room surrounded by furniture he'd built himself decades ago. Every piece was beautiful, simple, honest. Victoria tells me you're fixing what I broke, Thomas said. I'm fixing what she broke, Ryan corrected. You built something good. And then I handed it to someone who wasn't ready. Thomas looked at his daughter. No offense. None taken, Victoria said. You're right. You're ready now, though, Thomas continued. Took you long enough. They talked for 2 hours. About furniture. About craftsmanship. About the difference between building a company and building something that mattered. Before they left, Thomas pulled Ryan aside. Take care of it, he'd said. The company? My daughter. She's finally figuring out who she is. Don't let her forget. I won't, Ryan promised. Thomas Caldwell died 3 weeks later. The funeral was small, family and close friends. Ryan attended with Victoria standing in the back while people talked about a man who'd spent 40 years building furniture that lasted. After the service, Victoria stood at the grave for a long time. He would have liked what we're building, she said finally. Yeah, Ryan agreed. He would have. Christmas came again. The second one since Ryan had been fired. But this time, everything was different. Bennett Caldwell Furniture had 47 employees. Revenue was on track to hit $18 million. They'd opened a second production facility and were negotiating contracts in 3 new states. Ryan's apartment now had actual furniture. Not expensive stuff, but good stuff he'd built himself. Lily had her own room with a bed frame Ryan had designed specifically for her. The company Christmas party was held in the main warehouse. 300 people showed up. Employees and their families, clients, even a few suppliers. Lily ran around with a dozen other kids, playing tag between the workbenches. Patricia was there with her family. James brought his wife, a woman Ryan had heard about but never met. Marcus brought his brother David. Victoria stood near the finishing station, talking to some of the Caldwell employees who'd initially resented the merger but had come around. Ryan watched it all from the edge of the room, holding a beer he wasn't really drinking. Catherine Wu appeared beside him. You did it, she said. Did what? Built something that mattered. We're not done yet. You're never done. That's the point. Catherine smiled. I'm selling my stake. Ryan nearly dropped his beer. What? Don't panic. I'm selling to Thomas Caldwell's estate. Victoria's inheriting her father's shares plus mine. You'll still be co-CEOs, but she'll have controlling interest. Why? Because this company doesn't need me anymore. It needs the two of you figuring out how to run it together, and you can't do that with me in the middle. What if we screw it up? Then you screw it up. But I don't think you will. After Catherine left, Ryan found Victoria. Did you know about this? He asked. About Catherine selling? Yes. And you're okay with having controlling interest? Are you okay with it? Ryan thought about it. A year ago, the answer would have been no. But Victoria had spent 12 months proving she'd actually changed. Yeah, he said. I am. Good, because I'm terrified of screwing this up. You won't. How do you know? Because you care too much now. That's the difference. They stood there watching the party, watching people from 2 companies that had been rivals become something else. Not quite family, but close. Thank you, Victoria said. For what? For giving me a chance to fix what I broke. You earned it, Ryan said. Later, after most people had left, Ryan found Lily asleep on the cot in his office, Mr. Hopscotch tucked under her arm. He picked her up carefully, trying not to wake her. Her eyes opened anyway. Dad? Yeah, sweetheart? Are you happy now? The question caught him completely off guard. Yeah, he said, realizing it was true. I am. Good, Lily mumbled, already drifting back to sleep. Ryan carried her to the van through the cold December night. Cleveland was covered in snow again, the city quiet and still. He thought about Sarah, about how she'd told him that sometimes the worst things that happen become the doorway to something better. She'd been right. Getting fired had felt like the end of everything. Instead, it had been the beginning. Ryan drove home through empty streets, his daughter asleep in the back seat, thinking about the warehouse full of people who'd taken a chance on him, about the furniture they'd built together, about the company that had almost died and the one that had risen in its place. He thought about Victoria, standing at her father's grave, finally understanding what he'd tried to teach her. He thought about Thomas Caldwell, building furniture for 40 years because it mattered. And he thought about himself, a single father who'd been fired for telling the truth and had accidentally built something that proved integrity wasn't just good morals. It was good business. The apartment was cold when they got home. Ryan turned up the heat and tucked Lily into bed. She didn't wake up, just rolled over and kept sleeping. He stood in her doorway for a moment, watching her breathe. Then he went to the kitchen and pulled out his phone. There was a text from James. Good party. Proud of what we built. And one from Marcus. See you Monday, boss. And one from Victoria. Thank you for not giving up on me. Ryan set the phone down and looked around the apartment, at the furniture he'd built, at Lily's drawings on the refrigerator, at the life he'd constructed from the wreckage of the old one. It wasn't perfect. Nothing ever was. But it was his, built on his terms, with people who mattered. And that, Ryan thought, was enough. More than enough. Outside, snow continued falling on Cleveland, covering the streets, covering the warehouses, covering the past until all that remained was the present and the promise of whatever came next. Ryan turned off the lights and went to bed, already thinking about Monday, about the work that waited, about the furniture they'd build and the promises they'd keep. Because in the end, that's what it all came down to. Not revenge, not vindication, not proving anyone wrong. Just the quiet satisfaction of building things that lasted and keeping your word to the people who trusted you. Everything else was just noise.